Welcome to the Sacred Circle, a podcast about all things spiritual and mystical. From magic to meditation, from consciousness to ceremony, this podcast is dedicated to all of you seekers after truth out there. This is an invitation to all of you who still believe in magic, to all of you who respect the unseen, to all of you who don't take myths, legends, and ghost stories for granted. I am your host and guide, Dr. Alex. I don't claim to be an expert, a master practitioner, a shaman, or a medicine man. What I am is a seeker after truth. Welcome to the Sacred Circle. Join us every week on Binge on This, where you can find other shows like Happy News with Perry Kurtz, This, That, and the Other, Reading Ronin, What's Hood with Forever Cabron. Looking forward to delving into the unseen with you every week.
Hey everybody, welcome to the second episode of NickFlix and Chill. I'm sure you all enjoyed the rousing, amazing things I had to say about the last film, but today we're back with another one of my favorite movies. This is for House on Haunted Hill from 1959. So I need to say right off the bat, this is a campy, cliched, weird, I guess sort of experimental movie for director William Castle, but that's kind of why I love it. And William Castle is one of my favorite filmmakers because he was a man who didn't just make a film, release it to theaters, move on to the next one. Every one of his movies, they're all horror movies, he had to have a gimmick, and that was from making people sign waivers before they went into theater, fake non-legal waivers that said you promised you wouldn't sue the studio if you had a heart attack watching the movie, or having a spot in the lobby called the Frady Cat Corner if you had to leave the theater during his movies. Everything up to just having buzzers in the seats in theaters. Every movie had to be an experience when he created one. And House on Haunted Hill is probably his most well-known movie, but his least successful gimmick. And now I'm gonna get into the specific gimmick of this movie later on in this podcast, but first I just need to talk about the movie itself. For me, I love creepy old house movies, and I'm sure that if I continue with this podcast, I'm gonna talk about a lot of old creepy house movies. They're just sort of my kryptonite, I guess you call them. But this is probably one of the best ones of all. This is so campy to the point where it's basically parody. Let's see. Oh, well, we gotta talk about, first of all, it stars Vincent Price, who is goddamn oozes sex appeal and charm and is still frightening, but you can't stop watching him. I worship Vincent Price, absolutely love him. So, in this movie, he plays, I just think of him as Vincent Price, I always forget his character's name, I have it written down. He plays Frederick Lauren, and it starts off this movie, him and his wife, he's throwing a party for a birthday party, I guess, for his wife. And instead of inviting any of their friends, they invite 5 strangers to spend the night with them in what is called the most haunted house in the world. The house is never given an official name or a location. It's just the most haunted house in the world, and it's the house on Haunted Hill. And him and his wife, who is played by Carol Omart, plays Annabelle Lauren, who's Vincent Price's wife in this, and they have this incredibly just shallow, loveless marriage where they're at each other's throats constantly. Some of my favorite scenes are near the beginning when him and his wife are just in their bedroom alone, and it's just this back and forth, just, you're jealous of me, well, you're trying to kill me, well, I think you killed your first wife, well, and it's such this bizarre relationship, but it sets the tone of the movie perfectly, where None of these people in the house know each other. That makes it really easy to write dialogue, I guess, and get exposition out. Hello, my name is, and so we understand exactly who these characters are, and we're introduced to them the way all the other characters are introduced to each other. Also, the characters that they invite up to the house, let me just breeze through all of these characters that are just here to get killed off. You have Richard Long as Lance Schroeder, who is sort of he's really kind of the red herring, where he seems like he's going to be the romantic lead, but he contributes basically nothing to the movie. Alan Marshall, who is, okay, I'll get into spoilers, whose character, you think it's a stranger to them. He's actually in cahoots with Vincent Price's wife to try and kill him. I always, as much as I love this movie, I get so confused every time I watch it because the plot is such a mess. Turns out this character who you thought was dead comes back to life. They are faking, and they are in a plot to kill this person, but he was planting to kill them, and it goes in such a circle. You also have Carolyn Craig as Nora Manning, who is, and she's invited to the party. She's just a secretary who works for Vincent Price's character. It's just sort of picked out of the blue. Ends up being a plot in the ploy to kill Vincent Price. I'm not even trying to explain this entire plot. I'm just going to give it to you in chunks. Because it's such a mess. But that is kind of the fun of the movie. That's the confusing nature, is as confusing as the house itself. And also you have, finally, Alicia Cook Jr., who plays Pritchett, who is an alcoholic who also owns the house. I think that's all of them. Oh, and then Julie Mitchum plays Ruth Bridges, another completely forgettable character. Interesting, though, Julie Mitchum is the sister to Robert and John Mitchum, who are both very well-known Hollywood actors. She's not as well known. This is one of the few movies she's ever done, but yeah, in a family of very big name movie stars. That's as NickFlix and Chill goes on, you're gonna find out this podcast is about 5% of me telling you how good the movie is, and 95% just fucking trivia that I've accumulated over the years. So, like I said, every single haunted house cliche is represented in this film, and I think that's actually kind of great. If you tell anyone, what is the ultimate haunted house movie, I would turn to this one. It's just everything from, like, the chandelier falling and nearly hitting someone is in the first scene. And they set up so many things that pay off. Like, there's a vat of acid in the basement. Completely forget why it's there, what the explanation was, but there's one part where they're all standing around it, and one of them finds a mouse trap on the floor with a dead mouse in it, drops it in, and only the bones come up. It's so creepy, but so campy. It's so much fun. Also, one of my favorite parts of this whole movie, and I kind of forget about it every time I go into it, every time it makes me laugh, but it's the scene where Vincent Price has called all the partygoers together and is explaining the rules to them. You must stay in this house until 8 o'clock the next morning, and you will receive, $10,000 each, and if one of you should die, the money shall go to your next of kin. And he is explaining all the rules about you can't go into this room, and you can't... And then he ends it with, and just to make the party a little more fun, opens up these tiny little coffins that are laid out on the table, and all of them have a gun in them. Just a loaded, handgun, and just passes them out to the party guests. It's like, how is that gonna protect you from ghosts? It's such a weird choice. And yeah, of course, the rule of Chekhov's gun is implemented. If you show a gun in the first act, it has to go off in the second or third act. And yes, that does pay off. not in the way you might think. But yeah, the acting in this is like a soap opera. There's even one moment, I've never even noticed this before, but I just watched it again to prepare for this. There's one moment where Vincent Price is in the room with his wife, and he makes a comment like, should be a good party, and literally turns and looks at the camera, and just goes, I wonder how it will end. And was that just Vincent Price, like, fucking around ruining a take, and William Castle was like, yeah, it's good, just leave it in, that'll keep them guessing. But also something I really have to mention is despite, like, 80% of this movie being campy and weird and goofy, there are some legitimate scary moments, like, sort of early jump scares, and also just the atmosphere it can create is really good. Especially, I need to point out, I think it's when Bravo, the TV channel, would do they did a list of like the 100 scariest movie moments. This movie made that list with one particular scene that I think is genius, where Nora and the romantic lead useless character, they're in the basement, like, looking for secret passages, and you know what, I'm not gonna spoil it because that scene is so good and it just comes out of nowhere. It really is. The best thing about this movie, it's public domain, so it's on YouTube for free, and it's like an hour and 17 minutes. So that you don't have an excuse. Just check it out. It's one of the movies, late at night, turn off the lights, don't take, bathroom breaks, just watch it through, and you're either gonna, like any movie, you're either gonna love it or hate it.